4/26/01, grade 10 math, period 4, September 24th, day 7. The agenda for today is we'll be correcting the 4 questions that we had for homework on group factoring problems. We'll also be correcting the homework from page 160, number 22. That's dividing a polynomial by a binomial and having a remainder. We won't get to a lesson on group factoring today. So from the homework questions, we had these various problems. We had to factor these by group factoring. So we had a polynomial 8r cubed minus 64r squared plus r minus 8. And we factor this by group factoring. So in this case, the terms are in such an order that the first two terms, 8r cubed minus 64r squared, if you look at both of those two terms, you'll notice that you can factor 8r squared out of the first term, and you can factor 8r squared out of the second term. So in order to do that, 8r cubed divided by 8r squared will give you let's go back. So these are the homework problems. We'll forward on to the next question. So here's the question that we're looking at. 8r cubed minus 64r squared plus r minus 8. Again, noticing the first two terms, 8r cubed and 64r squared. 8r squared can be factored out of this, and 8r squared can be factored out of 64r squared. Dividing 8r cubed by 8r squared gives us r, and dividing 64r squared by 8r squared gives us 8. So by factoring these first two terms in this polynomial, you have 8r squared onto r minus 8. So far we've only looked at the first two terms. Now looking at the second two terms, you look at what can you factor, what's the greatest common factor out of r and 8? Well, the only common factor to those two is 1. So we can factor out, if we factor out plus 1, in other words, we divide both of those terms by 1, which is our factor that we found, we'll get r minus 8. So r divided by 1 is r. Negative 8 divided by 1 is negative 8. Now, we're almost done with this group factoring problem. You'll notice in brackets you have an r minus 8 and an r minus 8 over here. That becomes one of your factors, r minus 8, and the other factor becomes 8r squared plus 1. So the two factors turn out to be r minus 8 and 8r squared plus 1. So that's the first problem that we had. The next problem, we look at 12p cubed minus 21p squared plus 28p minus 49. Again, if we look at the first two terms, you look at 12 and 21, well, you look at the greatest common factor between those two numbers. Greatest common factor seems to be 3. So you can divide 12. Greatest common factor between 12 and 21 is 3. You can divide 12 evenly by 3 and 21 evenly by 3. And you can also factor out of p cubed, you can factor out a p squared. In other words, you can divide this whole first term, 12p cubed. If you divide 12p cubed by 3p squared, you'll get 12 divided by 3 is 4, and p cubed divided by p squared is p. So in other words, you have the factors 3p squared onto brackets 4p minus 7. Let's just multiply it through to make sure that we did that correctly for the first two terms in the original polynomial. 3p squared times 4p gives us 12p cubed. 3p squared minus 7p gives us minus 21p squared, which is up here. Now look at the second two terms. Look at 28 and 49. What's the largest, greatest common factor you can factor out of those? Possibly a 7. So if you factor out a plus 7, 28p divided by 7 is 4p, and 49 divided by negative 49 divided by plus 7 is negative 7. So we're almost done in group factoring. We look at this, and you have 4p minus 1 here and 4p minus 1. With group factoring, you have those two common factors, so that in the final answer, you have one of the factors is 4p minus 1, which is in the binomial in brackets, and the other one is 3p squared plus 7, which we have here. 3p squared plus 7 comes from up here, 3p squared plus 7. The other factor is 4p minus 7. That's the second problem. The third problem we had to do, we had this polynomial, 12x cubed plus 2x squared minus 30x minus 5. Again, look at the first two terms. What can factor out of both of these first two terms? Well, you can factor out an x squared, and you can also factor out a 2 out of each of these terms. So you can factor out 2x squared. And if you divide 12x cubed divided by 2x squared, gives you 6x, and 2x squared divided by 2x squared is 1. So we're almost there. Now you look at these second two terms, 30x and negative 5. What can you factor out evenly out of these two? Well, 30x, you can divide that by 5. Negative 30x divided by negative 5 gives you 6x, and negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. So again, you know you're on the right track because you have the common binomial in brackets for both cases, 6x plus 1 and 6x plus 1. So that's one of your factors, and your other factor, your other binomial factor is 2x squared minus 5. So you see 2x squared minus 5. The other factor is 6x plus 1. So there, we've successfully factored that one by group factoring. Look at the next one. 6v cubed minus 16v squared plus 21v minus 56. Again, look at the first two terms. What can you factor out evenly? Well, you can factor out a v squared from the first term and a v squared easily from the second term. So it's a v squared. And then you can divide 6 evenly by 2. You can divide 6 evenly by 2. And you can divide 16 evenly by 2. So the factor, greatest common factor between these two first terms is 2v squared. Now 6v squared divided by 2v squared should give you 3v. And 16v squared divided by 2v squared, negative 16v squared divided by 2v squared should give you negative 8. Then finally back here, these last two terms, you look at 21v minus 56. You should be able to factor out a 7 from 21, and you should be able to factor out a 7 from 56. So if you factor out a plus 7, you will get 21v divided by 7 is 3v, and negative 56 divided by 7 is negative 8. And you look at the binomials in brackets that are common, 3v minus 8, 3v minus 8, that becomes one factor, 3v minus 8, and the other factor is 2v squared plus 7, which you see in brackets here. Also from page 160 we had all of question 22 to do, and in that case you had to divide a polynomial by a binomial, and then in each case you were going to get a remainder, so you had to give the answer in the form of an equation. So in that case we'll look at how that works. So 22a, your dividend is x squared plus 10x plus 26, and your divisor is x plus 6, s plus 5. We've done a number of these before, so we put the dividend underneath the long division sign, and we put the divisor in the front. We look at what do we multiply x squared by to give me x. We multiply it by x. And we take x times x plus 5 gives us x squared plus 5x. Then we subtract. X squared minus x squared is 0. 10x minus 5x is 5x. Bring down the 26. Look again. You say, what do you multiply the x by to give me 5x? The answer is plus 5. 5 times x gives me 5x. 5 times 5 is 25. You subtract these two binomials. 5x minus 5x is 0. 26 minus 25 is 1. Then we look at setting this up in terms of an equation. You'll have x plus 5 times x plus 5 is equal to negative 1, because before it was, you would have it as x plus 5 times x plus 5 plus 1 equals 0, and if you subtract 1 from both sides, you get this final equation here. And the question asks to set it up in terms of an equation, so that's this. Each one of these questions is set up this way. Again, your next dividend is negative 8x cubed plus 3x plus 6 divided by x minus 1. In this case here, you'll notice that there's a term of degree 3, and you know the degree by looking at the sum of the exponents on the first term. So there's exponent is 3, so that's degree 3. And then the next one is a degree 1, because this has an exponent 1. So you're missing a term of degree 2, so you have to fill that in when you're doing this type of long division. So you have to put 0x squared. If there's none, you have to put 0x squared in your dividend. So you haven't changed anything, you just added 0. Negative 8x cubed plus 0x squared plus 3x plus 6 in your dividend, and then your divisor is x minus 1. You look at what do you multiply x by to give you negative 8x cubed. You multiply it by negative 8x squared. Multiply negative 8x squared by each of these terms. It gives you negative 8x. Negative 8x squared times x gives you negative 8x cubed. Negative 8x squared times negative 1 gives you plus 8x squared. Then you subtract the terms. Negative 8x cubed minus negative 8x cubed is 0. 0x squared minus 8x squared is negative 8x squared. Bring down the 3x, you have this binomial. You look at what you multiply x by to give you negative 8x squared. You multiply it by negative 8x. Negative 8x times x gives you negative 8x squared. Negative 8x times negative 1 gives you plus 8x. You subtract negative 8x squared minus the negative 8x squared is 0. 3x minus 8x, negative 5x. Bring down the plus 6, which we've done here. Then you have to multiply x, this x, by negative 5 to give you negative 5x. Negative 5 times x gives you negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 1 gives you plus 5. You subtract negative 5x minus negative 5x is 0. 6 minus 5 is 1. So your remaining is 1. The next one, your dividend, 2x squared plus 8x plus 4. You have a term of degree 2, term of degree 1, so you're not missing any of those placeholders. And then your divisor is 2x plus 1. Set it up under the long division sign. 2x squared plus 8x plus 4 divided by 2x plus 1. What do you multiply 2x by to give you 2x squared? The answer is x. Multiply that x by each term in your divisor. 2x squared times 2x. Oh, sorry, x times 2x gives you 2x squared. X times 2 gives you 2x. Subtract these terms. 2x squared minus 2x squared is 0. 8x minus 2x is 6x. What do you multiply? What do you multiply 2x by to give you 6x? The answer is 3 plus 3. 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 2 is 6. Then you subtract these terms. 6x minus 6x is 0. 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Your remainder is negative 2. So your answer is set up like this. 2x plus 1 times x plus 3 is equal to negative 2. Don't remember, because this was a negative 2, you added 2 to both sides of the equation, so it became plus 2. You would have, that we just went back a question. Just hold on a sec, I'll get to where we were. So if you were to take it as the question asked for, set up as an equation, you'd have factor x plus 2 times brackets x squared minus 2x plus 3 is equal to 5. That would be the answer. Number 22F, finally the last one that we're correcting. You have an x squared term minus 3x cubed plus 1. This is a bit of a trick question because you have to put these terms in order of degree. So in other words, the highest degree term should be at the beginning. So it should be negative 3x cubed plus 1x squared. You're missing an x term or degree 1 term, so you have plus 0x plus 1. You just put these in terms in order of degree, 3, 2, 1, and then none. And you had to put in a 0x term. And your dividend, put in your divisor, 3x plus 1 in the front. What do you multiply 3x by to give you negative 3x cubed? You're going to multiply it by negative x squared. So then you negative x squared times 3x is going to give you negative 3x cubed. And negative x squared times negative 1 is going to give you x squared. Then you have to subtract these terms. You're going to negative 3x squared minus a negative is going to be plus, so it's going to be 0. X squared minus x squared is 0. 0x squared, you're going to bring down a 0. So what are you going to multiply 3x by to give you 0x squared? You're going to multiply it by 0x. 0x times each of these terms in this binomial is going to give you 0. Subtract these, it's going to give you 0x. Bring down the plus 1. What are you going to multiply 3x by to give you 0x? The answer is 0. 0 times 3x is 0x. 0 times 1 is 0. Subtract these. You're left with 0x minus 0x is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. So in the end, you're going to have a remainder of plus 1. And your factors are going to be 3x minus 1 onto brackets negative x squared. And if you were to set it up the way the question asks, it would be that. And these following questions are the questions that we have for homework, and these questions are due next week. And just a reminder, when you come in next week, when I see you on Monday the 28th, we're going to have an in-class open book assignment which is going to count for marks. So I'll give you questions on everything we've done so far, and you'll be allowed to use your notes, your textbook, and anything we've done in class to solve the problems, and then you'll pass that in, and I'll mark that, and then I'll give it back to you, and then after I give it back, the day after that, there will be a test over everything that we've done so far in this class. And that's the end of the class. Thank you for watching.